Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you guys are doing all right. I was thinking about the next video that I was going to do, and it's off of the video I just watched from Bo Refik, Legion of Men on YouTube. I believe he came out with it either this morning or last night. I've had a friend's family over, and we've been having a pretty good time for the past day or so, and haven't really been paying that much attention to YouTube so much as I usually do. So a lot of it is about how things in your childhood can affect you in your adult life. And I can relate to that quite a bit. A lot of that really hit home for me because it took me back to a lot of things that kind of went wrong in my childhood. There was a time when my mother and her husband at the time was trying to get me over a fear of crawfish. I guess I'm not a Southerner. So as a kid, I had a pretty big fear of crawfish. I don't know exactly why. It's just the way that they're shaped, or the fact that they have so many legs, or the fact that they look at me as if I owe them taxes. I don't know. But I remember as a kid, they had one that was dead and already boiled, and they had encouraged me enough to have it rest in my hand, and so I did, and it really freaked me out. There was something that happened that I wasn't expecting. One of the legs, I guess, touched my palm, and I dropped it and started running, and this is where it kind of went bad, is that they started chasing me around the house with it, right? And though it may seem funny and innocent, I don't like crawfish at all. No, do not want to be near it. Don't like lobster. Don't like crabs so much, because it just reminds me of that incident. And then, of course, you have more stuff later on. But my father, who I haven't spoken to in almost 2 decades now, I think. He was a big time drug addict, and very abusive. The first memory that I ever had in my life, actually, was him overdosing on whatever drug he was on, and that's really messed me up. I grew up around domestic violence. My mom and her husband at the time fought all the time. So, that's something that I was just used to, but I wanted to get away from. It's one of the reasons why I joined the Air Force. And, the military didn't really make things any better. People constantly screaming at you. I don't do well with that. I really don't. The military really amplified it, right? Because there's a lot of things that really gave me PTSD from my time in service. Well, on top of the childhood, right? But you have this. You have this thing where you meet confrontation with the utmost aggression. I went from one extreme to the other, unfortunately. Before, I used to just shut down. I used to just shut down and weep. And that's really affected my relationships, right? With friends, with romantic relationships. And then when I started to gain more confidence and more respect for myself, I took it to the other extreme and got more aggressive. You know, the problem with trauma is that sometimes you don't even realize that you're doing it, right? And you have to constantly think, you know, what's going on? You know, what am I doing? How am I coping? You know, and I always try a lot of different ways to cope. Um, you know, I've said it before on the channel that, you know, I play music. You know, I build model kits. I sit down, I paint. You know, I do all kinds of things. Sometimes I'll even draw. You know, um, don't really play video games much anymore because, you know, video games kind of amplifies it too, right? Because if you're, you know, dying in the game and, you know, you get really frustrated with that, then, you know, it doesn't really help you to think or cope. When you're sitting alone by yourself and you're painting and you're coming up with something that you enjoy doing and you enjoy looking at because you did it, it actually heals you, you know. But having to always look over your shoulder, right? Always trying to find the exits. But I'm speaking about, you know, my military service. I know most of you guys probably wouldn't be able to relate to that, or maybe you could. I don't know. I don't know your story. I'd like to, but I'm sharing a little bit about mine. You know, the thing that I'm thinking about is an incident where I was going through my divorce while I was in, and you know, I was having a breakdown. Um, I had came into work late, and I remember my flight sergeants. Um, my so flight sergeants. They were the sergeants that were over the whole team, right? And they pull me in. They were like, "Hey, man, what's going on?" And, you know, I broke down in front of both of them. There were two of them in there, and they said, "Okay," you know. Went on a little bit more about the conversation, and then um, after, you know, all of us were ready to go home, he pulls me aside. He's like, "Hey, man, so I know you were late. Um, I'm gonna need you to come in, and you're gonna have to come in early, about an hour early, and you're gonna be sitting alone on the flat line by yourself." I said, "All right, cool. That's awesome." Um, it was then I really began to see just how little people cared about you. So here you have a guy that's going through it, right? Um, and this was before I was removed from the, you know, from the, you know, um, their whole world's coming down, and here you have this guy saying that because you were late, you're gonna now sit alone with loaded firearms, or uh, tasers or baton or whatnot. You're just gonna be sitting alone with all of these things that you could do, sitting in your head by yourself. Cool. People don't care. They really don't. They care a little bit more if you're a woman. That's just the truth. But if you're a guy, you don't get the same cut, right? And it places where you can go and talk about your trauma. It's really hard to find for guys. You just don't have. The only thing you really have is your community, right? With guys that you really trust. That's the only thing that men really have these days. And so because of my childhood, I shut down. Because of the military, I became overly aggressive. Right. And, I'm trying to work on finding a balance. Right. And I think I'm doing okay for the most part. Sometimes I do have outbursts, heart races, you kind of get those weird eyes, where you're just, you look like a crackhead. But sometimes you just get triggered, but there's ways that you can cope. There's things that you can do, to move forward, but you have to have those really tough conversations, with yourself. What drives you to do what you do? Why do you cope in this specific way? Why is this your crutch? Why do you always lean on this? Why do you always act this way? Because a lot of the times it can even be hereditary. My grandfather, he had restless leg after his so many years of working on a forklift. And, every now and then I'll even have restless leg, right? So some of the things could even be hereditary. It's not specific to dogs or cats, because we're animals too. Some people are affected by alcoholic parents, right? Alcoholic mothers who carried them to term, either addicted to alcohol or drugs. That stuff is really it's very real. Not everyone grows up in a warm home, warm loving home. A lot of people grow up in the situation that I did. So, and then what kind of really sucks is that you could find yourself ending up just like them. Well, not on drugs or alcohol, right? But in the way that you cope. They with anything that confronts them, getting overly aggressive or shutting down. So it's always good to sit and think, and talk about, run through the events, expose yourself to them again, try to understand why it happened, understand that it happened, and understand what you can do to fix it. And it's not just childhood that I think about. It's also, the stuff that I saw in military service, which is what I tend to think about a little bit more, though I don't want to, but it's what I think about a little bit more than my childhood. But perhaps I should really start thinking more about my childhood and why I do the things that I do, because I'm still on the journey too. I'm still trying to figure it out just as much as someone else is. I don't have this all figured out. Again, I don't think anybody really does. But I am still on my journey of self-healing. I used to be in the gym a lot when I was in Korea. I'm back in the gym now. I'm shrinking my waist. I'm losing fat, gaining muscle. Which is really good. Physicality is great. The pride, the accomplishment, what else can I say? You just feel really good from it, because you're investing into yourself. And same thing goes for the trauma that you get from a child. Well, as a child, from childhood, can really affect you in your adult life. So, a little bit about my personal experience, guys. A lot of kids are growing up in broken homes now, and they're lost because their parents were lost, and more than likely because their parents were lost. And it's a cycle. We're all stuck in a cycle, and we don't have really anything to teach us how to break these cycles. Other than get help. Where? Because in my experience, therapy doesn't really do a whole lot, right? Could be because I didn't have great therapists, but I am working with one right now. But that's for my PTSD. He's a good one. He's a good therapist. So maybe I'm jumping the gun on therapists, but in my experience, therapy hasn't really been that great. What has been great is making myself think, going through the process of self-healing, and moving on from it. That's the really important part, moving on from it. So take care of yourself, guys. You are the only person that you will ever have, truly, that stays with you 24/7. So sit and think. If you went through the same things that I did, or even if you haven't, maybe there's something that you're not seeing, right? Just sit and think. I'm really grateful for that video because it made me sit and think. So, listen, guys, we're still trying to figure this out. So let's do it together. And if you guys happen to have any thoughts, leave them in the comments. I do read the comments. I try my best to reply to them. I'd love to know what you guys are thinking. So, till then, guys, I'll go ahead and see you in the next one.